All right. After a couple days of getting away from doing this, we'll get back to it. We'll start on day-to-day workouts of what we would do at Wabansi for the distance runners, starting ideally tomorrow. We'll see if that happens or not. But just a little something if you are taking over a program, whether you are coming into a school that you haven't been at before, or whether you are moving from being an assistant coach up to a head coach. A little background on me: I was an assistant coach for 7 years to Dave Severance and in cross country, and then to Steve Luke, Dave Severance, and Brian Byers in track and field. And then in the same school year, I took over head coach of cross country and head coach of track. Before I took over as the head coach of either cross country or track, I took over the distance runners from Coach Severance after he had coached them for 6 years, with me being the assistant coach. A couple things I learned from that process. One, you've got to have training and programs in place that you know backwards and forwards and that you believe in backwards and forwards. Two, I tell this to everybody I know who becomes a new head coach somewhere. Your program isn't really your program until you've coached there for 4 years. Until you've coached there for 4 years, you've got a kid, a group of parents, any of that sort of stuff that keep on wanting to talk about, well, the old coach did this, or we always do this, or we always, and it's not your system they believe in yet. And so you're always fighting against how things used to be done there. My biggest piece of advice is throw out anything that you don't love, anything that you don't create yourself. Don't just follow someone else's plans. And I'll give you a little background on why that is for me. I took over in between cross country 2007 and track 2008. The cross country team, the last boys team at Wabansi Valley that Coach Severance coached, took fourth in state with a really good effort on some guys, and we've missed on a couple other people. I had a bunch of seniors on that team that were really good and really talented, and I told them, I'm going to try to keep everything the same for you of what Coach Severance would be doing so you guys don't hit a hiccup. And after you graduate, I'll start working in all this other stuff that I want to do. And that season was a total disaster. Now, we did a bunch of things really well. We ended up winning outdoor conference as a team. But that group of seniors in 2008 as juniors had two qualifiers in the 3200 who didn't qualify as seniors and didn't run as fast as they did junior year. 4x8 that qualified that had one of the weirdest prelim days I've ever seen as a distance coach. They qualified but didn't make finals. And a guy that ran on that I ended up hurting, doing too much on a cold and icy day, and they weren't able to do the things that I thought that they should have been able to do. Looking back on it, here's what I did wrong. Number one, Coach Severance liked doing a whole bunch of lactic threshold and sub-maximum pace stuff that I'm not real good at. I don't know it as well as he does. And quite frankly, I don't like it as well as the stuff that I do that I really believe in. Secondly, I tried to up their mileage beyond what those guys probably should have done. My general belief is you can get stronger. It's difficult to get faster. And so we got up there and we were pretty ambitious with some of the mileage that we put together, and I let guys do too much. And third, I tried keeping the same sort of Monday through Saturday workout routine that Coach Severance had, but I wanted to work a third day in. I was trying to put in something from my high school days of Coach McNider, and that hybrid system did not work, and I had to fall on my face to figure out that system didn't work. So what I've done every year since then is I've brought in my material, things I believe in. I'll tweak a couple of things from a coaching clinic or conversation with this person, conversation with that person, or reading something somewhere. But everything I do, I've spent a lot of time with, I've thought with, I've usually experimented on one of my training groups in previous years where I've worked something in very quietly without telling them it's new. And then if that group does well, I kind of work it into the rest of the group. So the conversation that really changed my opinion of how I was doing things actually came from Chris Quick of Palatine. We were at the Red Grange Invite which is usually the second outdoor invite for the Waubonsee Valley team. And I was belly aching to Coach Quick that we were looking great in workouts, but it just wasn't showing up in the meets, and I didn't know if I was doing something right or wrong, and I was confused in my own training program at that point. And Coach Quick looked at me and said, well, you ran for Jim McKnight and you ran for Al Carius. It seems like if you follow one of those two guys, you probably got a pretty good program. And, you know, I went home, and after we didn't do as well at sectionals as I thought we should have, I sat down and started Xing stuff out and putting in, okay, Coach McKnight would have done this and Coach Carius would have done this, and let's put something together. And I bought into it wholeheartedly and threw it in, and we did really well. And the irony of the situation is the next year we end up winning the 4x8. And that group of kids was trained in a way that I will never train anybody else, because I had an often injured guy and two guys who really hated running but were really talented at it. And I used to bring them in for morning workouts that would not be morning runs. We do med ball stuff. At one point I had them doing 3-man weave, full court passing drills in basketball, ending with a layup, because that's what I need to do to keep that group engaged. And I knew I had to do that to keep that group engaged. If I would have just come in and said, here's my system and here's what you guys are going to do, that wouldn't have worked for that group. So yeah, we won a 4x8 running, I think it was 742, 743, where morning practices were plyo boxes and med ball tosses and basketball full court 3-man weaves, because that's what it took to keep that group engaged. And I will probably never in my life run another set of workouts that look like that. But for that group of kids, that was the right thing. So anytime you have a program, whether it's your first year as the head coach or whether it's your 35th year as the head coach, you have to have a program you believe in, you believe is right for that group of kids, and it can look radically different from one year to the other. You are not coaching a system, you're coaching a group of young men or young ladies, and you have to have a system that works for that group. I struggle when I get asked to sit down and talk to other coaches about what I do, because it really depends on what year it is and what are the group of kids I have and what are they strong at and what are they weak at, because I design an entirely different training system in the specifics from one year to the next. The framework looks the same, the skeleton looks the same, but the actual connective tissue is very different from one year to the next. All right, so hopefully next time I get on, we actually talk about what we would do on Mondays with our longer interval section of the training program.